Oh,
Welcome to True Crime and Wine Time. I'm Terry.
And I'm Llama.
Tonight, we are uncorking the truth behind one of the darkest crimes and breaking it down together with you.
One case, one conversation, and one or maybe two glasses of wine to take the edge off. It's time to get comfortable and double check those locks before we get started.
So let's take a sip and dive in.
Hello, everybody.
hello.
Hello. Happy Thursday night to everybody. You might be like, Llama, why do you sound out of breath? Because I got into a fight with my chair. That's why.
I saw it happen. It's true.
It did. And I prevailed, and I am the conqueror. No, I have, I have a tower computer, right? And I have these cool little headphones. The problem is they don't reach, right? If you just plug them in. So, we got an extender for it. This is a year ago. And they get tangled up in my chair all the time because instead of just buying, like a 3 feet extender or something like that, Elbow Feet, my partner, bought a 9-foot one because that's
go big or go home.
Makes sense. And it's been the bane of my existence for over a year now. So,
well, it is fair to say that you had a war with your throne tonight and you won.
I did. I won the Game of Thrones.
That's won the Game of Thrones. We were talking Game of Thrones a little bit before show.
We were. Well, hello, everyone. You know me as Llama. The lovely Terry True Crime couldn't be with us again this week while she's recuperating. So I brought my guest co-host from part 1, the lovely Amos, who generally works behind the scenes as producer and making funny faces or gestures at us while we're live that you guys can't see, but we do. But she's decided to come on camera again because I told her she did such a great job last time. So thank you for coming and recording this with me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you did great. You did great. Though, before we begin, if you are watching us on YouTube, please hit that like button, boop, the little thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss when we go live or drop an episode because we have lots of shows over there. I have my show, Couch Court with Llama. There's Midday Missing, True Crime and Wine Time. For members, we got lots of shows like Llama Learns About, which I'm doing tomorrow. I'm very excited. And TMI.
We haven't had one of those in a while.
Yes.
See, I've been so disconnected. I didn't even know you were having a Llama Learns tomorrow.
I am. That reminds me. Remind me to schedule after we're done because I meant to do it before and we got distracted talking about Game of Thrones.
Well, we haven't talked all week.
That's true. That's true because you had a life, which is rude.
Life
How
is
dare
life,
you? How dare you have a social life? Hello, Lady in Gray. Good evening to you. Let's say hi to our friends real quick. Hello, Pam. Saying good evening, friends. And grab your snacks and buckle up for episode 2 of the Shawn Grate story, which is infuriating. There will be rants, I'm sure.
Is not so great.
Lady in Gray, let me be the first to say that I hate this guy. We really should just rename the show to I Hate This Guy blank and just insert a name there because we do hate everybody we tend to cover because they suck. They're awful. Aw, Lady in Gray just ordered her anniversary merch. So yesterday was my 1-year anniversary of my show Couch Court with Llama.
I was so sad I couldn't be there. I mean, I tried, but
I know you were there in spirit. I know. I saw your messages, but she just bought merch that's on sale. It's all 1 year stuff, including a Couch Court with Llama coloring book. It's all Couch Court with Llama.
I'm totally getting the coloring book.
I know, I am too. And we're gonna leave that up for like the next month. So use a bread tie to shorten the cord, silly. Oh my gosh, Lady in Gray, why are you just now telling me this?
Or zip ties.
Oh, I didn't think about it. I will now. Now, if you're listening to this as a pod, please download and leave a rating or review, whatever it is that the platform you're listening to us on ask you to do, because it really, really helps our little pod get noticed. It puts us into the algorithm. It tells other people like, hey, I watched this. I liked it. You should too. And here is why. Also, hello to a whole bunch of new Australian viewers, listeners we have, that's been listening to our Robert Hansen 12-part series, because that's where they are on the pod. But hello, friends from the other side of the world. Thank you for listening to us. I want to give you a nice little shout out there.
Should we say good day, mate?
Or that, yes. Amos can say that. You say that. Say good day, mate. Sorry, we don't mean to tarnish your accent. We're just Midwesterners. You can also become a member of our YouTube channel, which comes with all sorts of exclusive perks, like I already said, like some additional shows and all that jazz. All you have to do is click the join button and pick which tier works best for you. So, as we said, tonight we are here for part 2, Captured, the call that brought down Shawn Grate. And the first one was, wow, to hear Jane Doe's call to 911 is just the goosebumps every time. I mean, we probably listened to it numerous times, but even then, just, goosebumps every single time. Hi, Lainey. Hi, you're always starting dinner. I love that you like to listen to us and cook food. I love that. I hope it's food and not people. I'm just kidding, Lainey. Sorry. If so, I won't tell anybody. It's okay. So we'll be continuing on with that tonight, mostly doing his interviews with the police. So they're just as not great as you thought they would be.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into that, why don't you tell us what you're drinking, Ames?
Tonight, so I just got back from Tennessee. I went down there for a little weekend jaunt, but we went to Buc-ee's.
Oh, okay. That's the big gas station place.
I love Buc-ee's. And Michigan doesn't have a Buc-ee's. And in fact, the closest one is Kentucky until I hear Ohio's getting one.
Ohio has one. It's open. It's on Dayton. No, yeah. You know how like you come down 75 probably to, guess what? If you take 75 all the way down to 70, because you're going to come visit me in Columbus, it's on the way, babe.
Even more reasons to come visit you.
Even more reasons. I mean, is it an hour away from where I live? Yes. Worth it? Yes.
It's okay. Remember that. But anyway, I picked up this tumbler from Buc-ee's this trip. And so I'm drinking my peach tea from that.
Oh, well, that's cool. I've never been to one, but Elbow Feet has been to one, and he called me because he went to Tennessee. That's where he went.
Oh, God, Elbow Feet and a Buc-ee's?
Yeah, he told me, he said, don't ever go there. You're going to hate it. He's like, it's everything you hate, and that makes you anxious. People. You don't want to go.
Chaos.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He was like, never, don't do that. So, well, tonight I am drinking wine. I'm drinking Yosemite Road Moscato. It's nothing fancy. It's from a gas station, not Buc-ee's, but it was late on time. And I was like, oh shit, it's Thursday. I should probably have some. So that's what I'm drinking tonight. Much needed. It's okay. I mean, honestly, for cheap wine, it's really refreshing. It's not like some of the other, $4 bottle wines or whatever. So Buc-ee's is people-y. Yeah.
People-y.
Thank you. I'm good.
But they have, their brisket's really good. I like it. And they have every fountain drink you could possibly think of, like a freaking wall.
Oh, wow.
I love my fountain pop.
I don't like fountain pop. I like stuff in my cans. Oh, watermelon and strawberry Vizzy hard seltzer. Ooh, that sounds nice and summery. I love that. All right, guys. Well, we got another long one for you tonight. So let's get into the story tonight. Actually, let me give you a quick recap of where we went because it has been a week. So we started off last episode with a call from a woman who was held in the house by her abductor who had been brutally raped and tortured. And she called 911 while he was asleep, begging for people to come rescue her. And it is very, again, I know I've already said it gives you goosebumps, but that's like understating. Like you can just feel the fear from her words. And she was being held in an abandoned house. And so during that call, you can hear them trying to locate her and all of that. They eventually do locate her and arrest this man, Shawn Grate, who she said she'd known for about a month and a half. They had met at the Kroc Community Center, right, where they give away like free lunches and help people, get up on their feet and everything. She was a volunteer there, and that's how she met him. And then he did this. But what they didn't know, the police didn't know, is that Jane wasn't the only person there. They then found the body of Elizabeth Liz Griffith, who had been only reported missing for a week, but she'd actually been missing for about a month and a half. And her body was found in a closet, tied up, and the door, taped shut as well. And unfortunately, Liz wasn't the only body they found in the house. They found the body of Stacy Stanley, who her body was found under the basement stairs with trash thrown on her, who had only been reported missing for just a few days. And we learned a little bit about the histories of Liz and Stacy. Liz was special needs, as well as had paranoid schizophrenia. She had a history of mental illnesses. She had a whole care team. She didn't live on her own, but she had a team to help her with her everyday lives, and then Stacy, sorry, I keep saying Stanley. That's her last name. Stacy, she was a recovering addict. She had just, beaten it, turned her life around. But beyond that, she was a loving mother of 2 boys, well, men at this point in their lives, but I'm sure to her, still her little boys. A grandmother. She was known for loving rock music and having big hair. And big hair, as we saw from a picture, was not an understatement. Okay. Huge hair, huge hair for big energy seemed to be what people like to say about Stacy. And what's so sad about Stacy is that she didn't know this guy. She had gotten a flat tire, pulled into a BP, was waiting for her son's friend to come help change her tire, and Shawn Grate just happened to be there. And so he played the nice guy, whatever, and, to be nice, she offered him a ride back to his house. And then that's when he abducted her, assaulted her, and murdered her. And so that's where we left off. He's been arrested by the police. And now we're going to get into his background, his family life, as well as the interviews with Captain Lay and Detective Kim Major, who is really quite amazing in this whole story.
She's a major badass.
A major badass that she is. She had big, amazing hair. So that's
70s. I would say it was more 80s, but okay, whatever.
I loved it. All right, so let's get into Shawn Grate's background. So to understand the man who was sitting in the interrogation room, we have to look back at the cracks that formed in his foundation decades before the first body was found. Oh my God, he doesn't even have a shirt on. Oh yeah, I forgot he was naked when they arrested him.
Yeah, we're lucky he has pants on.
That's true. We are lucky he has pants on. Sorry. If you're listening to this on a podcast, when we record this on YouTube, we usually have some visuals to go along with it. So if you're like, what are they talking about? You can come over and watch it on YouTube as well if you do better with visuals for things. Now, the portrait of Shawn Grate's youth is one of a charming boy whose internal world was slowly being poisoned by resentment and a perceived sense of abandonment.
Shawn Grate was born in Marion, Ohio on August 8th, 1976.
We had a show there last year.
We did. And to his neighbors and teachers, he was a handsome, laid-back kid with striking blue eyes that would become a haunting trademark mentioned by almost every woman who crossed his path. But behind the smile and the charming persona, there were signs of struggle. He was held back both in kindergarten and first grade, an early indicator that he was out of step with the world around him.
Yeah, and being in the 70s and 80s, it's not like they even had like programs we have today for kids that
Right.
had behavioral issues that early on. Now, would he have benefited from them? Who knows? But they really didn't quite have those things back then. Now, the stability of his early childhood vanished right before his 6th birthday. His parents, Terry and Teresa, separated in 1982. And for years, the narrative of his home life was a tug of war. Initially, his mother was awarded custody, and by the time he was 11, his mother moved the family to Kentucky to be with a boyfriend. But just 2 months before Shawn turned 16, the legal tide shifted and custody was transferred to his father, Terry. So Shawn moved back to Ohio and attended River Valley High School. And I just want to say it's actually not uncommon for males when they get into their teens and they come from a family like that to then want to live with their father during those years. I remember when my son was younger, that was something that was just talked about. Like, you never know, by the time he's there, he may want to, not be around mommy all the time anymore. They
Right. I mean, that makes sense.
Have, more time with their fathers, which, I mean, some do. Mine's not like that, but it's because I'm amazing. Just kidding.
I mean, when you have a mom like Llama and a stepdad, I guess you could say, like B, you got everything you need. Anyway, later in his future interrogation with Detective Kim Major, she pressed Grate on what drove his hunger. And he reached back to a memory from when he was just 4 years old. He told a story of being hungry for cereal and knocking on his mother's locked bedroom door. And when it finally opened, it wasn't his mother who answered, but a strange man. And Grate claimed that the man followed him to his room and attacked him.
Now, whether this memory was accurate or a convenient narrative for his crimes, which is what I think, it served as the foundation for his deep-seated hatred of his mother. He told Major she was promiscuous and had abandoned him, which doesn't make sense because his parents would have been still married at this time. And you're telling me a grown-ass man beat a kid and the dad didn't notice or see anything? I don't know. We don't know either way if it's true, but I have my suspicions.
He's a storyteller, I think, but that's an opinion.
Yeah. Now, it was a classic serial killer trope of a toxic, unresolved resentment towards the mother figure that he would later project onto every woman he met.
Mm-hmm. And now, if his relationship with his mother was built on hate, his relationship with his father was built on a single fragile bond of baseball. Mm-hmm. Baseball was the language he and his father spoke. And during his time at River Valley High, Grate was a pitcher. And during a game, he broke his arm. During the subsequent surgery to fix his arm, doctors discovered that he had a tumor. And the injury would end his baseball career. And in Grate's mind, he didn't just lose a sport. He lost his connection with his father. He felt detached, like a ghost in his own town, no longer the athlete his father bonded with.
Now, it should be noted that there are a lot of contradictions in his stories, as I said. He lies a lot. Mm-hmm. It's because to some, he said his mother was his go-to person and his shoulder to cry on during high school. But to others, he whispered that he hated her for abandoning him. So this ability of his to hold two conflicting truths at once allowed him to navigate the world as a laid-back guy, while the rage and jealousy simmered in him just beneath the surface and was waiting for a catalyst to explode.
The normal facade of the high school baseball player didn't just fade after his injury. It shattered. By the time Shawn Grate was 18, the simmering violence Detective Major spoke of already began to boil over into the public record.
On Thanksgiving Day, November 24th, 1994, 18-year-old Shawn Grate was arrested for the first time. The incident was a chilling preview of the signature violence he would use decades later, strangulation. When his girlfriend tried to end their relationship, Grate didn't let her walk away. He grabbed her by the throat. Now, he had already established a pattern that if a woman tried to leave him, that he had no problem using his hands to silence her.
Despite the arrest, Grate managed to walk across the stage and graduate from River Valley High in 1995. But without the structure of school or the identity of an athlete, his life quickly spiraled into criminal opportunism.
Now, on October 23rd, 1996, Grate and a juvenile accomplice broke into a home in Marion County. They weren't just looking for a thrill, though. They were looking for profit. And they ended up walking away with jewelry and cash. Now, this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a felony burglary. Grate was caught, convicted, and handed a 4-year prison sentence.
Grate entered the prison system in February of 1997, but he wouldn't stay long. He was granted judicial release after serving only 8 months of his 4-year sentence. And in October of 1997, Shawn Grate walked out of prison a free man. He moved between Bucyrus and Marion, a convicted felon at 21 years old with a documented history of domestic violence and theft. To the neighbors in Marion, he was just a guy who made some mistakes. They didn't see the predator who had learned that the system was easy to navigate and even easier to slip through.
Hi, Spetty Roz. Hi, babe. Hope you're doing well. Don't worry, you're not too late. There's a spot on the couch for you. Make room for Spetty, Chad. Make room for her. Now, the year 1999 was a terrifying preview of the predator Shawn Grate would become. His violence was no longer just simmering beneath the surface when he began a reign of terror against the young girl carrying his child. Now, this period marks the moment his signature move, strangulation, became a weapon of domestic control. In February 1999, Grate's 17-year-old girlfriend was pregnant with his child. And despite her vulnerability, Grate's response to conflict was physical dominance. And she called the police, reporting that he had pinned her down and began choking her. Just 1 month later, he was back, breaking into her home and issuing death threats. What a great guy. So many good choices. Blech. I hate this guy. Let's say it together, chat. I hate this guy.
I hate this guy. Yeah. The legal system's response was a revolving door. He spent less than a month in jail. In a tragic and common cycle of domestic abuse, the girlfriend, despite her family's pleas for a restraining order, asked the judge to lift the no contact order. And on September 11th, 1999, their son was born. Grate was now a father, but the birth of his child did nothing to soften his violent impulses. October of 22nd, 1999, barely a month after his son's birth, the charming former baseball player vanished, replaced by something out of a horror movie. Grate broke into his ex-girlfriend's home and hid under the couch with a butcher knife, waiting in the dark for her to return.
It's terrifying. Like, this guy is literally every horror movie this guy does in real life. And that's so scary. Now, once they arrived home, he assaulted both his ex-girlfriend and her sister while brandishing the knife. As they struggled for the knife, his ex-girlfriend's finger was severely sliced and Grate himself was cut. But it was his own words that revealed his true pathology. Quote, "Shut up I'm in control now. If anyone comes to the door, there will not be anyone here to answer it. So you better hope that no one knocks at the door." End quote. He wasn't just committing a crime. He was savoring the role of the captor. He was holding them hostage, relishing the power over life and death.
But this time, the system finally stopped the clock. Because he had violated his original 1996 probation with his violent felony assault, a judge revoked his early release. Grate was sent back to prison to serve the remainder of his original 4-year term. From March 2000 to January of 2003, Shawn Grate was off the streets. It was the longest period of incarceration, and for 3 years, the women of Ohio were safe.
But prison didn't rehabilitate him. It only seemed to sharpen his resentment. When he walked out of those gates in January 2003, he was 26 years old, twice convicted, and quite frankly, more dangerous than ever.
And as the heading says that Llama typed, still a POS.
Yeah.
Yes. The period between 2003 and 2005 reveals the terrifying evolution of Shawn Grate's psychological warfare. He wasn't just a physical abuser anymore. He had become a master of isolation, surveillance, and a chilling form of a domestic psychological terror.
Yeah. In October 2003, less than a year after his release from a 3-year stint, Grate was back in handcuffs because, of course, he was. They always are. Now, the charges were tragically familiar. You guessed it, guys. Strangulation. It's almost like when people use this as a method of violence, they do it over and over and over again. It's almost like we know that.
Right?
But sure, okay. But this time, a darker layer emerged. He was accused of forcing his ex-girlfriend to perform a sex act on him.
In a failure of the legal system that would have devastating consequences, he was only charged with a misdemeanor domestic violence, avoiding the sexual assault registry. Ugh, unbelievable.
Of course.
He served a mere 7 months, walking out in May of 2004.
7 months.
I know.
7 fucking months. Disgusting.
Yep. By now, his ex-partners described a man who vacillated between unhinged rage and a crushing catatonic depression where he wouldn't leave the couch for days. Red flags, red flags, red flags, like, hello.
Right? It's fine. He'll change. He'll get better. You'll see. No, just kidding. It doesn't happen. Now, in 2005, Grate met Christina Hildreth. At first, he was the ultimate chameleon. He was attentive, eager to impress, and played the part of the perfect partner to her children. Christina thought that she had found her soulmate. Girl, it's okay. We all do sometimes, but ugh. But the mask slipped the moment they moved into the Woodbine Apartments in Bucyrus. The attentive partner became a paranoid jailer. He bolted the doors and windows shut so no one could see out. And he systematically dismantled Christina's life, isolating her from her family and eventually removing her children from the home, leaving her completely vulnerable.
Control.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps the most disturbing evidence of Grate's escalating psychosis was his obsession with surveillance. Grate had cut a slit in the back of her sofa and had been living inside the couch.
Yeah.
He told her he had been watching her every move, even while she was sitting on the very cushions he was hiding under. What?
Inside the couch.
It was an ultimate violation of safety. The now once helpful boyfriend had become a nightmare in her own living room.
I promise you there's no one living in our court couch.
No.
Okay? But what the fuck?
This guy.
What do you mean you're living in a couch? How does one even live in a couch? That's what I don't understand, but thank God.
Not me going out there and hitting the back of my couch.
Right? Everybody, right now, get up.
Check your couches.
Bang your couches. I didn't even know that was an option.
Right?
I didn't even know I had to worry about this. Yeah.
I mean, it's not funny. I mean, I'm making a joke, but this guy is diabolical. Like, the shit he won't come up with.
Mm-hmm. Right? Rehabilitation my ass.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird. So yeah, go check in your couches, guys. Hi, K-Dubs. Hope you're having a good night, babe. Welcome. Gosh. In June 2010, Grate launched a brutal assault, raining blows down on Christina's face and grabbing her by the throat. Now, during the struggle, he broke her arm. And in a rare moment of courage, Christina spoke up. Good for you, girl. I know it's hard. Good for you. While Grate waited in the hospital, she told the nursing staff the truth. But by the time the police arrived, the opportunist had already fled.
Following police advice, Christina stayed away from the apartment. But when she returned briefly to collect her essentials, she walked into a scene from a nightmare. He was hiding inside the couch again.
Again.
He had waited in the dark.
Burn it. Just burn. I just walk in.
Yeah.
Throw shit, gasoline on my couch and just set it on fire and be like, I don't know. I mean, you can call it arson, I guess, but somebody was living in my couch.
I mean, that's called self-defense if he's living in it and it's on fire. And well, I don't know.
Right? Can you claim self-defense? Probably. Right? I don't know.
He waited in the dark, folded into the furniture, watching and waiting for her to return. Ugh. This time, however, the police caught him and he was arrested, sentenced to 180 days in jail for first-degree misdemeanor domestic violence. What?
Yeah. What? How is that it? How is it not breaking and entering or burglary or some other serious shit when he's living in a couch? Okay. Like, what?
I mean, we're not talking about like on the couch. We're talking like in the couch.
The couch. Yeah. His girlfriend earlier, he was hiding underneath the couch, because I had to double check like several times. Like, no, sure. Oh, yes. That is exactly what Pam wrote in the research notes. I was like, what, Pam? Yeah.
What double checking, Pam?
He broke her arm.
Right.
He basically tried to kill her, and all he gets is 180 days in jail. What is that, like 6 months or something? That's not enough. I'm sorry, it's not enough. And anybody that's crazy enough to live in a couch like twice, with his record, right? Flamethrower to the couch. Yeah, a misdemeanor, guys. A misdemeanor for domestic violence. Now, even behind bars, Grate refused to let go of the control he craved. He violated protection orders by calling Christina repeatedly. Thank God we only gave him 180 days, right, guys? He's really going to learn his lesson in there. Now, while he couldn't reach her directly, oh my God, this next part's wild. While he couldn't reach her directly, he began sending bizarre, unsettling letters to the apartment addressed to her cats. Yeah, you heard that correctly. Letters addressed to the cats. All right, so he's lived in the couch twice, and now he's writing cats. But we're like, you know what? 180 days, that's going to fix him. It's going to be fine. He's going to learn his lessons. What?
He should have been hospitalized or sent for some sort of evaluation at least. I don't know. But something is wrong with this guy.
Right? Does Dr. Spencer Reed get mail leg? Oh my gosh, that's so crazy.
I'm sure that Dr. Spencer Reed doesn't get unsettling letters in the mail.
From people in prison.
Who lived in your couch.
I morbidly want to know what they say, because I'm like, what does one write to a cat? But at the same time, I bet it's horrific. I don't think it's, hey, how you doing? You playing with your little toy? You getting your belly scratches? No, I think it's bad things he probably wanted to do to the cats.
I can't stand this guy.
No.
So Christina endured 5 years of this psychological and physical cage. During that time, Grate's only recorded work history was a few weeks at a motel. He lived off her, controlled her, and hunted her.
What a fucking loser.
And even after she managed to get away, the nightmare didn't end. 2 years later, word reached her that Shawn was looking for her. Quote, I moved. I got a different car. I changed everything. I knew if he found me, I wouldn't survive a second time.
Ugh. Christina, you weren't wrong, girl.
No.
You weren't wrong. And good for her. Like, it's so hard to get out of these relationships. And listen, you can, if anybody's like, oh, you could just leave. He hid in her couch twice and wrote horrible letters to her cats.
Right.
Like, what else could you do? Like, oh my goodness. I'm so thankful that Christina, you were able to get out and get help. And unfortunately, I'm sorry you had to live in fear for as long as you did.
Yeah.
You know, because Christina Hildreth was one of the lucky ones. We're about to see that there's so many that weren't lucky.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she escaped the man who lived in her couch, but as she moved into the shadows to protect herself, Shawn Grate was already looking for his next victim, because 180 days didn't fix anything.
The year 2011 saw Shawn Grate attempting to perform his most convincing role yet, the devoted, church-going family man. But as Amber Nicole Bowman would sooner discover, the loving husband was merely a thin-skinned mask for the other Shawn.
Wow. K-Dubs, there was a dude in your attic whose release date is 2030. Oh my gosh. That is horrifying. Wow. I'm so sorry. That must be,
Again, that's terrifying.
Yes.
I mean, oh my
anybody God. Like living through people living in their shit. That's not supposed to be there. Oh my goodness.
It's going to make the noises in a house seem extremely more spooky to me.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, I'm glad he's locked away for some time anyway.
Yeah.
Elbow feet, spade in the dots. Now, in late 2011, Shawn Grate was a regular attendee at a local church in Mansfield. It was here that he met Amber Nicole Bowman. To Amber, Shawn was the answer to a prayer. It always starts out that way, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
He was kind, attentive, and seemingly grounded in faith. Okay, don't believe that for 1 second. They were married on December 23rd, 2011, just as the holiday season was in full swing. And for a few months, the fantasy held. In July 2012, they welcomed a daughter into the world. But as soon as the permanent bond of a child was established, the all-American facade began to rot.
Amber's account of their short-lived marriage mirrors the stories of the women who came before her, but with an even more ominous intensity. The isolation tactics began immediately. Grate tried to sever Amber's ties with her support system. When she fought back, the threats turned toward their child. He issued a chilling ultimatum that would haunt her long after the divorce. Now let's hear her talk about that.
Okay.
He called my work, actually, and he told me if he could not see his daughter, then nobody else could. And then he said, if you do not help me and give me money, and help me out financially. He was going to put my family's names in a hat and start taking things himself, and it will be the grand finale. At that point, I was very scared.
Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes. Wow. Oh, Amber, girl. And here's the thing, as like with his past, you fucking believe him. All right. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't call his bluff on anything. I mean, he hasn't murdered anyone yet in his story, but I don't think it's from a lack of trying.
That we know of.
That we know of. Actually, wait, when did they get married? Oh, no. Technically, he has already murdered before, but we'll get to that next episode. Sorry.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I forgot about the timeline on that. Now, she described a physical shift that happened when Grate's temper flared, a moment where his famous blue eyes seemed to transform. She told police that he put his hands around her neck and something in his eyes changed. He turned very dark and she realized it wasn't the man she married anymore. And that's like a real phenomenon that really does happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very eerie. Very eerie.
Really?
It's like shark eyes or something.
Yeah.
Shawn Grate can be normal. I'm sorry you don't sleep well, K-Dubs. I totally understand. And, you know, people are always like, why do people listen to true crime as entertainment? Blah, 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 blah. Because this shit really does happen. And people like, you know, some people might be like, well, if this happened to you, why do you listen to true crime? Because it, oddly enough, makes you feel not alone. In so many different facets where you do feel alone, you know, whether you're a victim of a crime, whether you're a family of a missing person, whether you're, you know, it just helps knowing, sadly, I mean, it's not a positive, it's a bittersweet thing to know that other people have went through the same suffering that you have. But at the same time, it's like the only thing that makes it not so scary, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, the more you know, right? Mm-hmm. As far as somebody who hasn't been through it, I listen to these stories and I obviously can understand where these victims are coming from. Mm-hmm. And I know now things, maybe I'm a little paranoid now, but I look for all of the things that you read and hear in these true crime stories.
Absolutely. You know, they're real. They are real things that happen every day. I know most of us like to live in our little fantasy protection bubble. We all do. And there's nothing wrong with that. To be like, oh, that would never happen to me. But it's also not entirely realistic because you don't know what could happen to you at any point in time. So I always think, you know, I mean, they usually say about whether, you know, like be prepared and not scared. Well, I think the same can apply to true crime, you know, be prepared, carry something, you know. I mean, most of the victims, they didn't do anything that would even result
in their living their lives.
Exist, you know. Exactly. And sadly, you know, that can happen to any one of us. So,
well, Amber filed for divorce in October of 2012.
Good for you, Amber.
A year after their wedding. By April of 2013, she was back in court filing a restraining order, terrified for her life and the lives of her family members.
But it wasn't just his romantic partners who were seeing the cracks. Grate's instability was leaking into his platonic friendships. When a friend refused to give him a loan, Grate didn't react with frustration. Instead, he reacted with a threat. He sent a text message that simply read, "Meet the other me." Ugh.
Who does that?
Fucking weirdo.
It was a rare moment of honesty from a man who spent his life in disguise. He was acknowledging the monster that lived behind the blue eyes, the other Shawn that was currently brewing the hunger that would lead him into the woods of Ashland and the closets of the Yellow House. With his marriage over and his ties to normalcy severed, Grate was now a man with nothing to lose.
And by late 2013, Shawn Grate was a man adrift. His marriage had imploded due to his own fucking making. His other me was becoming the dominant personality. And the system had repeatedly failed to recognize the serial predator in its midst. It literally turned a blind eye. I mean, again, how many times of him strangling women do you need before he's actually charged as a violent offender?
Right?
How many do you need? Like, seriously, Ohio, get it together. Now, for the next 2 years, he drifted through the back alleys and vacant lots of Ohio, ghost in the machine, if you will, until the morning the handcuffs finally stayed on for good. Of course, at the expense of others' lives.
Right.
So, great. Ohio has blood on their hands, too. Cool.
Unfortunately, so many other states do as well. So.
That's true.
The investigation into Elizabeth Griffith's disappearance had been Captain David Lay's primary focus for a week. He was deep in the digital weeds of phone pings and bus routes when the call came in. A woman had escaped a house on Covert Court, and the man they had in custody wasn't just a kidnapper. He was a squatter in a house that was quickly becoming a crime scene.
Now, Captain Lay walked into the interrogation room. This was the first time law enforcement sat face to face with the man who would become Ashland's greatest nightmare. Shawn Grate sat there, seemingly calm, which is crazy. When Captain Lay began to question him, Grate didn't retreat. Instead, he started talking. He identified himself clearly, and his voice was steady, as if he was just discussing a mundane misunderstanding rather than a violent felony. Like, yeah, I know that there's a naked woman who called the police, but it's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Let's be besties.
Yeah.
How weird.
He's watching him, the interrogation is very weird to watch.
That is true. I guess we should say for listeners, the interrogation of Shawn Grate, they're both available on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
As well as this trial. So
yes,
you can see this for yourself with your own eyes and see what you pick up from it.
Now, Grate told Lay he had known Jane Doe for about 2 months, and claiming they had met shortly after he arrived in Ashland from Mansfield. He admitted he was squatting, claiming he didn't even know whose house it was, but his version of the timeline was already starting to fray.
Grate tried to paint a picture of a domestic dispute somehow. I don't know how he was going to paint it that way, but he tried. He told the captain that Jane Doe had been talking about an ex-boyfriend named Daniel, and that the tension between them had escalated. He even admitted to walking from her apartment back to his house with her.
In Grate's mind, getting carried away was a euphemism for 3 days of terror Jane Doe had actually endured. He was testing the waters, trying to see how much the police knew and how much he could minimize.
Which is wild, because in the last episode, we talked about Jane Doe's, hospital visit, the whole, rape kit process, what happened to her, what was all over her. And he just thought, oh, you know what? They're totally not going to see what. Are you kidding me? What?
Dude, they're going through the house right now.
Where he knows there's dead bodies. It's fine. But
but they're not going to. I'm just going to wait.
It's just a misunderstanding. It's fine. Now, but Captain Lay wasn't there just to talk about Jane Doe. He was there because Liz Griffith was still missing. Now, as Grate continued to talk about Jane Doe, Lay was looking for the crack in the story, the moment where a nice guy squatter would have to explain why the house on Covert Court had a smell that no carried away argument could explain.
I can't even imagine. Grate continued his attempts to redefine violence as a twisted form of romance. And as Captain Lay pressed for details, Grate's narrative became a chilling mixture of admissions and blatant minimizations. He initially tried to frame the sexual assaults as conversations that turned physical.
Gross.
He claimed they had sex, but admitted Jane Doe didn't like it and was beating herself up about it.
Right.
He casually confessed to punching her about 24 hours prior to his arrest.
As one does.
And admitted that even after he struck her, he forced her to have sex, even though she explicitly told him she didn't want to.
Oh, God, this guy. Now, Captain Lay didn't let the carried away narrative stand. He confronted Grate with the truth. And let's listen to this little part, shall we?
She's saying you tied her down to a bed. I mean, what's the deal with all the straps on the mattresses?
I did tie her down. I abducted her.
You abducted her?
Yes.
Explain.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Her. It's fine. I did it. I abducted her. I tied her. Don't you? Don't we all? It's crazy. Crazy how he talks about that. So he admitted to tying her down at least twice, though he flatly denied having sex with her while she was restrained. Okay, buddy. It was really a desperate attempt to maintain some shred of decency in his own warped mind. Like, oh, I tied her down, but I would never cross the line. And okay, buddy.
Liar, liar, pants on fire. When asked how many times he assaulted her, Grate's answer was vague, saying a few times. He confirmed it happened in the bedroom, but when Captain Lay began to pivot the conversation toward the rest of the house, asking if Grate had been upstairs, his demeanor shifted. It's hard to get up there, he said.
Now, it was a calculated lie. Grate knew exactly what was upstairs. He knew Liz Griffith was in the closet. But, of course, in the same breath that he denied accessing the second floor, he insisted to Captain Lay that he truly cared about Jane Doe. I know I tie people down to my couch in bed because I care about them and, hit them in the face and everything. Yeah, that's what?
Captain Lay knew the marriage excuse was a fantasy. He knew that hard to get upstairs comment was a lie. He was watching the predator try to bargain for his life, unaware that the forensic team was patiently waiting to open the very door Grate claimed was too difficult to reach.
Right. Now, we probably should have said this earlier, but it's a detail often lost in the timeline. But at this exact moment in the interview, police had not yet stepped foot inside the house of Covert Court, with the exception of getting Jane out and clearing the house. The search warrants were still being drafted, so they were operating on Jane's testimony and Captain Lay's instincts alone. So if you're a little bit like, wait, no, I mean, let's be honest. They knew from the smell. They're officers, all right? They've probably smelled it in their life or in their job, in their careers, know? But so he knows Liz is missing, Captain Lay. He thinks Shawn probably had something to do with it based on talking to Jane Doe, but he doesn't have that confirmed as they haven't actually located the body yet in their timeline.
Right.
Oh.
Captain Lay highly suspected that Liz's body may have been the cause of the undeniable smell officers had reported in that yellow house. Grate knew it too. And what followed was cold, calculated game of cat and mouse, with Grate using his honest confession about Jane Doe as a shield to hide the murder upstairs.
So Captain Lay began to circle. He asked Grate if he knew anyone else from Jane Doe's apartment complex. Grate easily offered up 2 male names, acting the part of the helpful witness, but then Lay dropped the name that had been driving the Ashland police for weeks. Do you know Elizabeth Griffith?
Grate didn't flinch. He admitted he met her once. He described her as a big girl with blonde hair and recounted a sunny, mundane afternoon where he and Jane Doe were playing badminton outside. And he told Lay that Liz had approached them and talked nonstop, adding with a dismissive chill that he was not attracted to her.
He says that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He says that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Grate even admitted he knew she was missing, claiming Jane Doe was the one who had told him about the disappearance. So he was painting himself as a bystander in all this, just another person in town hearing the local gossip. So Captain Lay pressed harder.
He emphasized the urgency, reminding Grate that Elizabeth had psychological issues and needed her medication. He was giving Grate an out, a chance to be the hero who helps find a vulnerable woman. But Grate held the line. He flatly denied any further contact with her. It's very important we find her, Shawn. If you've seen her, it would be helpful.
So Grate tells him he hasn't and tries to deflect the mounting pressure by pivoting back to the one crime he had already admitted to.
Mm-hmm.
So while Lay asked him how he felt about what he had done to Jane Doe, Grate didn't express remorse for her pain. Instead, he expressed self-pity, because of course he would, stating he didn't think she would ever forgive him, which is,
This man is
gross.
Every time Lay tried to pull the conversation back to Elizabeth, Grate retreated into the relationship drama with Jane Doe. He was trying to keep the investigation contained to the bedroom on the first floor, desperate to keep Captain Lay from mentally climbing the stairs to their closet.
So Grate continued to posture as a concerned partner, asking Captain Lay if Jane Doe was okay. Look at him being so concerned. What a great guy, huh? Ugh.
That's what I have to say to Shawn Grate.
But as Lay listed the physical evidence, like the bruises covering her body, Grate began to fill in the blanks with the cold mechanical details of his planning.
He described his disturbing process of restraint. He told Captain Lay that he used his hands, scarves, and clothing to ensure she couldn't move. He admitted that when he left the house to walk to the BP for his Marlboro Black 100s, he tied her directly to the mattress. It was obvious he wasn't just getting carried away. He was securing a prisoner.
Yeah, that's not how that works, Shawn. So now, when Captain Lay pushed for the exact moment the abduction began, Grate's answer stripped away any lingering doubt about his intent. I didn't know there was any. I mean, there was only for him. He was the only one that had any doubt he was in the wrong here.
I mean, even his admission of what he did is dismissive. He is dismissive about it.
I abducted her, so what? It's fine. She wanted it, like they always do. Okay. So
she said no, but she didn't mean it.
No, right. He admitted the kidnapping started on Sunday evening, and then he dropped a chilling detail. Quote, I planned it the night before, end quote. Meaning this wasn't a spontaneous argument like he initially claimed. Instead, it was a calculated hunt.
Quote, I wanted to hold her. She didn't want to be held. I didn't want to let her go, end quote. In Grate's mind, holding her was a justification for a 40-hour nightmare. Captain Lay, however, was done with the euphemisms. He forced Grate to look at the legal and moral reality of his actions.
You had sex with her against her will. What do you call that?
Rape.
And for a moment, the mask slipped, and Grate used the word. He admitted the first time was against her will, recounting how Jane Doe told him plainly and repeatedly that it wasn't right. But almost immediately, he began to backpedal because, of course, he did.
Mm-hmm. He described touching her belly, trying to talk her into it, and then contradicting his own admission of rape just seconds earlier. He claimed the actual intercourse wasn't against her will because she had stopped resisting.
If that fucking matters, it doesn't fucking matter.
Maybe because she didn't want to get hit.
Right? Or maybe she was past that. We don't know. We don't know what all he did. Remember, he gave her like some muscle relaxers or something, you know, like cheese. Okay. It was a classic tactic, blaming the victim's exhaustion for his own violence. Now, Lay didn't let it slide. He called out the contradiction, pressing Grate on the specifics of the trauma, the anal penetration with his fingers and the forced oral sex. Quote, when you came in her mouth, was that against her will? Sorry for the vulgarity, but it's a very important point that he's trying to drive home to Grate. Like, really? Was that against her will? Because I'm pretty sure it was.
The interrogation continued as Captain Lay tried to piece together the timeline of how Shawn Grate ended up in that house on Covert Court. Conversation drifted into the mundane, jobs, food, habits, but always circled back to the dark reality of what had happened behind those closed doors.
So Lay began digging into Grate's recent history. Grate admitted to breaking into a house near the Gray Mill and spending time in a fort he had built in the woods, as a grown man does, of course. He eventually migrated to the Yellow House on Covert Court around the 4th of July, crawling through a window to claim the space as his own.
As Lay looked for a trigger, something that might explain the sudden escalation of violence, he asked about Grate's life. Grate mentioned working at a Save-A-Lot for a few weeks and spoke about a woman named Margaret who was nice to him. But when the conversation turned to his stress, his answers became muffled and lost the recording.
So Lay left the room, returning with the coffee that Grate had requested. This small act of service seemed to loosen Grate's tongue, but his perspective remained warped. He told the captain that he had shared something wonderful with Jane Doe, a statement that stood in horrific contrast to his next admission.
Lay didn't let the wonderful comment hang in the air. He pressed for the truth about violence. Grate finally admitted to hitting Jane Doe with a closed fist. Then he described the process of the sexual assaults with a detached cruelty.
He admitted that Jane Doe didn't want to perform oral sex. And when Lay asked how he forced her, Grate's answer was chillingly simple. He told her to. But it wasn't just by words. Quote, she was tied down by her legs. I grabbed her head and forced her. She was trying to pull back, and I was rough. End quote. Oh, yeah. What? Shared something wonderful indeed, huh, Shawn? Ugh.
This happened on Sunday, the very first night. Afterward, he tied her up again to walk to the Circle K for cigarettes. In Grate's mind, these were just details of a complicated weekend. As Grate sat there sipping his coffee, talking about wonderful moments and forced acts in the same breath, the police were anxiously waiting to get into that Yellow House for a search warrant to collect everything they needed to put him away for life.
So Lay circled back to Elizabeth. He asked Grate point blank where they were going to find her. And Grate, still playing the role of the helpful observer, mused that she probably wasn't at her apartment. Which is weird for somebody who said he didn't know her, right? Why would he think that? When asked where she was, his answer was a hollow, I don't know. He even tried to feign empathy, asking if she had any family, a rather chilling question coming from the man who had ended her life.
But Lay pushed further, asking if there had been a three-way sexual encounter between Grate, Jane Doe, and Elizabeth. Grate used Jane Doe's own values as a shield, fucking douchebag, claiming she didn't want to have sex until marriage, as if that moral boundary applied to his actions.
Right? Like, oh, now you're going to be like, no, Jane wouldn't do that. She didn't. Oh, really, Shawn? Really? Okay, so you were aware of this boundary she had. Okay, cool. So Lay warned him. He spoke about the other people missing in the areas where Grate had been staying. He told him that if a connection was found, his issues were going to get much, much bigger. Quote, is there anything you want to tell the truth about, Shawn? Because if we find you're connected to these other disappearances, everything changes.
But Grate wouldn't budge on Elizabeth. Instead, he retreated into the details of his assault on Jane Doe, almost as if he were boasting. He talked about having sex for hours. He confirmed the presence of Vaseline in the house for lubrication, and admitted that when he didn't use that, he used spit, though he tried to claim Jane Doe was the one who did it, continuing his narrative of her compliance.
Now, the wonderful connection Grate claimed to have with Jane Doe was dismantled by the physical evidence. Lay confronted him with the duct tape. She says you put duct tape over her mouth. Why the tape, Shawn?
Grate confirmed it and almost admitted to showing her a stun gun. He was describing a torture chamber as if it were a series of home improvement projects. He denied that tying her up was for access to sex, claiming instead it was to keep her from leaving while he went for cigarettes or slept.
Which is exactly what you do when you're in a loving relationship with somebody, have a special connection, right?
I just don't know how delusional one person can freaking be.
No, I don't think he's that delusional. I think he knows exactly what he's doing, but he's an idiot. So you're not being honest with me, Shawn. I know you're not. Lay's voice was steady, but the pressure was mounting. He knew that the duct tape, the stun gun, and the tied up legs weren't the only secrets in the house. He was looking at a man who would admit to rape and kidnapping while still trying to protect more secrets. And those secrets of the bodies in the house.
Now that's the end of Captain Lay's interview with Shawn Grate, as the lead detective, Kim Major, entered the room to take her shot at the sick bastard. Oh, love saying that. But first, we want to take a fast forward to some of Captain Lay's testimony at Shawn Grate's trial. And during his cross-examination by defense attorney Rolf Whitney pointed to pages 51 and 55 of the transcript. What was happening during these silences, Captain?
He was thinking, calculating his answers.
Then Whitney brought up the sound of Grate's voice, the sniffling and the crying captured on this tape. This wasn't during the discussion of the kidnapping. It was when Captain Lay had pinned him down on the subject of Elizabeth Griffith. And through the tears, he didn't describe a struggle or confess to a murder. Instead, he spoke of Elizabeth in past tense. He said she was set free, that she had no more problems, and that she doesn't have to cry anymore. Let's hear a brief moment from Captain Lay on the stand.
Yes.
Ugh, brace yourselves too, because he gets emotional.
She's saying you tied her down to a bed. I mean, what's the deal with all the straps on the mattresses?
Next one.
Next.
At one time, he said to you, and when you've been talking with him about Elizabeth Griffith, his answer was, she's set free, no more problems, and she doesn't have to cry anymore. Remember that answer? What did you think at that time when he told you that?
I thought he killed her, sir.
Yeah. It was a confession wrapped in the language of a savior. Grate was still trying to frame his violence as a form of mercy, even as he wept for the girl he claimed to have liberated from her tears. He never used the word kill, but at that moment, Captain Lane knew that the search for a missing woman had officially become a recovery mission. And again, if you didn't catch the first episode, we know that because of Liz's illnesses, she would call the police 911 several times. And they knew that. Everybody knew who she was there. You know, they didn't think Liz was a menace to society, but they knew she had mental health issues. And she was a staple in the community. You know, I'm sure they were like, oh, there's Liz calling again. But they knew she wasn't violent or harmful, you know, that she needed some extra
attention,
humor and care, you know, to work with her when she did call with, you know, oh, it's raining, you know. And I'm sure that they were heartbroken to learn. Lots of people were heartbroken to learn what happened to Elizabeth.
You've seen Captain Lay there. He got emotional on the stand.
Yeah, I did. I'll be right back. I gotta let the dogs out. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I will go on.
It's a picture of you.
The entrance of Detective Kim Major marked a turning point in the investigation. When she walked into the station on September 13th, 2016, she wasn't just another officer. She was one of the most qualified people in the state to sit across from a man like Shawn Grate. Major didn't just stumble into this role. Her entire 20-year career prepared her for the exact moment. A Top Gun graduate of the police academy with a degree in criminal justice from Ashland University. She spent 2 decades sharpening her instincts. She worked 3 years at, I can't say this word, Tuscarawas County Sheriff's Office. Sorry, Ohioans. I mispronounced that. And another 3 years in Child Protective Services, a role that taught her the nuances of victim trauma. She had joined the Ashland Police Division in 1997, where she became a specialist in crisis negotiation and forensic interviewing, with over 2,000 cases involving violent crimes and sexual offenses under her belt. Major was an expert in the language of predators. When Major first sat down, her expectations were grounded in the routine. Based on the initial report from John Doe, she expected another local sex offender, a common, if tragic, occurrence in police work. She had no way of knowing that she was about to engage in a 33-hour psychological marathon. Over the course of the 8 grueling days, Major would be the one to peel back the layers of Shawn Grate's psyche.
Yes, she did.
She wasn't just asking him questions. She was building a bridge of trust with a man who'd spent his life destroying it. While the rest of the world was just beginning to hear the name Shawn Grate, Major was already deep inside his mind, realizing with every passing hour that the man across from her wasn't just a kidnapper. She was sitting across from a serial killer, and the clock was ticking to find out just how many names were on the list before the forensic teams found them first.
Now, the psychological chess match between Detective Kim Major and Shawn Grate began with a calculated gesture of trust. Major knew that if she treated him like a monster, he would hide behind his cage. But if she treated him like a man, he might just let her in.
And the first thing Major did was remove his restraints. She wanted him relaxed, to feel like this was just a conversation as opposed to an interrogation. As the cuffs came off, she took him in. He was physically fit, but carried the grime of a man who had been living in the shadows, unwashed and disheveled. But it was his eyes that stayed with her. They were piercing, startling blue that seemed to look right through the room.
And we know he could not smell good because they made note of how Jane Doe smelled because she was unbathed and everything.
And she'd only been there for 40 hours. I imagine he didn't shower ever.
Because it was an abandoned house. They didn't have running water. He used like a bucket or something to bathe. Like, ooh, gross. Now, up until this moment, Shawn Grate was a ghost to the Ashland police. At first, Major thought he was, again, just another sex offender, a type that she had interviewed hundreds of times. But then he started to talk, and the type quickly vanished. He described to her having a hunger to kill. It wasn't a choice, but a physical need that had been gnawing at him from the inside out, which I also think is bullshit, but that's what he says, so we'll go with it, I guess.
Major, the expert negotiator, leaned into the role of empathetic listener. She didn't recoil, but instead she began to befriend him. She spoke about how everyone makes mistakes and praised the honesty he had shown with Captain Lay. She acknowledged the tears he had shed just moments before, framing his violent history as a burden as he was carrying. She says, "I can see that you're hurting, Shawn."
"I'm struggling." Oh, he's struggling, guys. He's struggling. This is why we can't be an investigator. I'd be like, the fuck you are. I'm just kidding. I would totally be bad cop. Now, in that exchange, the trap was set. Major validated his plan to get to know his truth. By acknowledging his struggle, she gave him permission to stop being a suspect and start being a storyteller. Shawn Grate was ready to feed his hunger one more time. Not by killing, but by finally telling someone exactly what he had done.
As Detective Major later described it, Grate didn't offer a full confession all at once.
Of course.
He revealed his crimes in careful, thin layers, testing Major's reaction with every sentence. Grate painted a picture of a man with almost no one in his life. He claimed that Jane Doe was the only person he was truly close to.
So he recounted their meeting at the Kroc Center, where she volunteered, sharing lunch in a place meant for community and safety. Major saw this meeting as a perfect storm of sorts, the intersection of Grate's predatory hunger and Jane Doe's angelic and trusting nature.
Grate's fixation on Jane Doe, that's a tongue twister for me, I apologize, was deeply delusional. He spoke at length about his plans to marry her, convinced that they shared a profound bond. However, the reality was completely different. Jane Doe told Detective Major during their interview that she considered Daniel from the Bible, yes, that one, to be her spiritual husband, and that she had no intention of ever being in a relationship with or marrying Shawn Grate.
Right? You remember when she was telling Lay, like, Daniel? Oh, she was bringing up her ex. This Daniel from the Bible. So
he's a dumbass.
She was a very religious woman.
Yes, she was. Is.
He initially tried to frame their encounter as a consensual relationship, claiming Jane Doe wanted the sexual component. But Major pushed for the specifics of the day she arrived at the house. Jane had reported that Grate was pacing back and forth, a sign of mounting tension. Major asked what he was thinking in those moments. And he confessed that his heart was pounding and he was contemplating what to do before he finally moved towards her, ripping the Bible out of her hands.
The narrative of a willing partner fell apart under the weight of Grate's own admissions. He claimed Jane was horny that day and wanted to marry him, but he couldn't hide the physical reality of her rejection. When he made his move, she pushed him away. Grate's response to her rejection was a chilling look into his ego. He told Major that he wasn't used to being pushed away. Jane Doe's refusal was a disruption of the fantasy he had built of the two of them.
Now, Detective Major didn't attack Grate's delusions. Instead, she used them as a wedge to separate his fantasy from the forensic reality. Major began by addressing the relationship Grate claimed to have. Now, she didn't call him a liar. I would have, but she's obviously more qualified to do this than I am, because I've been like, you liar. She simply held up a mirror to Jane Doe's reality. She reminded Grate that Jane Doe's boundaries were impenetrable. She had given him her phone number, and he was never allowed inside her apartment. To Jane Doe, he wasn't a fiance. He was just a mere acquaintance, not special to her at all. Mm-mm.
Major then pivoted to Grate's emotional state, a tactic designed to lower his guard. She told him she could see he was torn and asked if he wanted his life to be better, that he was hurting and that maybe all of this was a mistake. Shawn said that it wasn't his intention, but recognized that sorry isn't going to fix it.
You don't say, Shawn.
Really?
You don't say. Oh, wow. Lady Gray says, I think he had a fantasy about himself that all women want him. I mean, yeah, I think so as well. I mean, listen, he was a fairly good-looking guy with blue eyes. I mean, he was not unattractive, I'll be honest. Is he the most dashing? No, but, I'm sure lots of women did find him attractive in that sense, but they probably talked to him for 2 minutes and got the heebie-jeebies and got out of there.
As soon as you hear him talk, in my opinion, he becomes unattractive.
I was going to say, yeah, like as soon as he starts speaking, you're like, never mind. Nope, I don't think so.
I can hear in his voice every time I heard him speak. During the trial, during the interrogation, I hear this. He just thinks he's more than me. He thinks higher of himself.
Oh,
you
yeah.
can just hear it in his voice. Obviously, you can see it too.
Yeah, huge ego, huge narcissism. This guy, like, radiates out of the friggin' room. Now, sorry. So Grate was beginning to realize the gravity of his situation. I don't know why he didn't already know that with the dead bodies there, but okay. Admitting that he had gone overboard. Major seized that moment of vulnerability. She challenged his version of the violence by bringing the victim's pain into the room. While Grate claimed he only hit her once, Major painted a picture of a woman hurt all over as she was, terrified of being bound and helpless every time he walked out of the door.
To get the why, Major invited Grate to explain his stressors. She framed his violence as a reaction to external pressures, giving him a reason to confess. Grate took the bait, citing the weight of child support and bringing up his mother.
But, like, let's get out of here, sir. Child support. It's what made me kill all these women. Get the fuck out of here, Shawn. You're ridiculous. See, this right here is also why I don't believe all of his other bullshit stories about his mom, about this happened, this. No, not at all. because that doesn't even make sense as a reason. I mean, nothing ever makes sense really for these kinds of things. And I understand that, but like, what? Are you fucking kidding me? So I don't believe most of what he says. But she's doing a very good job.
But you're responsible for your own fucking actions.
Exactly. And you probably can't pay your child support because you can't get a job because of all the stupid shit you did because you're a fuckwagon. So whose fault is that though? It's again your fault, Shawn, for abusing women, trying to kill them, hiding on their couches, writing letters to cats. Like, it's your fault you're here, not your mommy's. Okay, you're a grown-ass man. How old is he? He's like, what, 44 or something?
Old enough to know better.
Yeah, he's in his early 40s when he gets caught and arrested. Now, the interrogation room became a place of terrifying contradictions as Grate continued to layer his delusions over the brutal reality of the kidnapping and rape. Detective Major, ever the expert, used Grate's own warped sense of morality to draw out the truth. Pam says, Llama, fuckwagon. Is that one word or two? I just love you. Honestly, if I could put the word fuck in anything, I'm going to say it. I use it as one word, in case you're wondering, for the Llama spelling bee. It's one word.
I love it.
Fuck face. Fuck wow. I'll have to throw fuck face in here for Lady in Gray because I know it's her favorite.
Major kept the focus on Jane Doe's piece, urging Grate to man up and be honest. As he spoke, the wonderful connection he claimed they shared was replaced by a description of violent struggle. Grate admitted that when Jane fought his advances, even trying to kick him and defend herself, the situation shifted.
She then asked him why he decided not to kill Jane and the act of strangulation. Grate admitted he contemplated killing her, but something made him stop. Oh. To him, she was different. He explained that from the moment he met Jane Doe, he had decided he was going to take her for 3 days, as one does when you meet somebody. You know what? I'm going to keep you in my house for 3 days.
If you're in a relationship, that's called a getaway. It's not called kidnapping. Just saying.
Yeah. This is why women are weirded out by you, because that's not normal.
One of the many disturbing manipulation tactics Grate liked to use was faith. He repeatedly referenced God and Jesus to frame his violence as a spiritual mission, even telling Jane Doe that God told him to do this to her.
That son of a bitch. How dare you? How dare you? Now, when confronted that he forced her into sex, his justification was almost beyond belief. He felt that, quote, she needed it. Wow. While Jane was counting the seconds, praying for a way out, we heard her voice.
Mm-hmm.
Grate was trying to stop the clock. He would promise her just one more time and I'll let you go. But he admitted to Major he simply didn't want the fantasy to end. Quote, I wasn't ready for her to go. Time was going by too fast. Ugh.
I'm sure Jane did not feel that way.
No.
The physical evidence of his care for her was even more grotesque. He admitted to putting makeup on her face. Not to make her feel beautiful, but to hide the dark bruises he inflicted. He convinced himself that she would give him grace and that she loved him, mistaking her survival tactics for genuine affection. This dumbass.
Mm-hmm. He's so gross.
Thought.
You want to call him a fuckwagon? You can. It's fine.
He is a fuckwagon.
He is a fuckwagon, right? Now, As the 3 days came to an end, Grate's exit strategy was basically a scorched earth scenario. He told Major he was going to keep her for just one more day, then set the house on fire and wait at the police station for his inevitable arrest. I think the last part's true.
Too. He wasn't going to do that.
The last part, no. The other part, probably.
He probably
as
will
we'll learn later on.
He
was going to turn him. I'm such a good citizen. After I was done raping and murdering her and committing arson, I was going to turn myself in.
Why would you do that? Why?
Why would I not? What? Okay, sir. Okay.
I mean, how about the other times you did it? You just don't know about it yet. Why didn't you admit to those? Why didn't you turn yourself in about those?
Right. Jane Doe is so courageous, and I hope she is doing as well as she can.
Her best life, despite.
I wish her all the healing.
Yes. He is garbage. Oh, it's me. I'm like, well, what are we doing?
What are we doing here? We don't know. We don't know what we're doing here.
The bridge of trust between Detective Major and Shawn Grate was growing stronger as the minutes ticked by. So Major decided to shift her focus entirely to Elizabeth, Liz Griffith. Maybe he had her. Maybe he didn't. Maybe she wasn't alive. Maybe she was. But if she was, the clock was ticking. She played She played on the only thing she thought might reach Grate, his desire to be seen as a good man who had simply made a mistake.
Can I do quotations with just my middle fingers? A good man. Because that's how I feel about that. Ugh.
Sure.
Sure. Those quotes.
He's a fuckwagon.
She told him she knew he had a conscience. She leaned into the idea that Liz and Jane Doe were two different scenarios, allowing Grate to maintain his delusion that his treatment of Doe was somehow special or romantic, while Elizabeth was something else.
Grate's responses were a bizarre mixture of denial and admission.
Of course.
He wouldn't say he killed her, but he spoke of her in a way that left no doubt. He said she was better off now and that he hoped she was in a better place. It was the language of a man who had already stood over her lifeless body.
So Megar then pressed harder. She told him she knew Liz was dead. She didn't ask if it happened. She just asked where she was. She promised Grate that she wouldn't leave his side, offering him a twisted form of companionship in exchange for the truth. And Grate sat there, sniffling, and his Top Gun interrogator wearing him down second by second. He wasn't the typical criminal she dealt with, and she told him that, feeding his ego, desperately trying to get to the location of Liz's body.
It wasn't a no. It was a not yet. Grate was standing on the edge of the truth, hovering between the safety of his lies and the finality of a confession. Major stayed right there with him, refusing to let the silence settle, pushing him toward the right thing until the weight of the secret became too heavy to carry.
And then the psychological dam finally broke. In a chilling and disturbing moment of clarity, Shawn Grate stopped playing the role of nice guy and began to reveal the true scale of his path of destruction. Quote, I may not be able to take you to her, but maybe someone else. The air in the room changed, but Major, ever the professional interviewer, didn't flinch. She asked the question that every investigator dreads. How many are there? I don't know, depending on how much you say are many. It was his first admission of being a serial killer. Grate then resigned himself to his fate. Quote, I guess I'm ready to go ahead and get my lethal injection, but I will tell you everything first.
I don't feel sorry for you, Shawn.
Mm-mm.
He started with a name Major hadn't even heard yet. He told her about a nut in nut. That's
his word.
His words, not
ours.
In Mansfield, Ohio. A woman named Candace Cunningham. He said she had been gone for a long time. Her body left in the woods. Major realized the floodgates were open, but she didn't let him stop. She pressed again. Who else? Grate says, the house where I came from. Or who else? He says, the house where I came from. Major's voice remained steady. She knew she was recording a death warrant. She asked if it was Liz and where she was. As Grate broke down into sobbing, nearly unintelligible breaths, he confirmed that while he was eating, sleeping, and praying with Jane Doe on the first floor, Liz Griffith's body was just a few feet above their heads, hidden in a closet beneath a pile of laundry.
Detective Major, maintaining her role as the supportive listener, returned with snacks and drinks, small comforts to keep the conversation flowing as Grate began to map out the final moments of Liz Griffith.
Major started the conversation with the fact that Liz had been missing since August 16th. Grate didn't fight her over the date. He explained that Liz had called him late that night because she couldn't sleep. She came over to his house around 11 p.m., bringing a game of Yahtzee. They sat there, playing a game of dice in a house with Liz, having no idea that her life was about to come to an end. It just happened. I just reached up and just choked her.
He's such a fucking liar. He described it with a terrifying lack of motive. When Major pushed for details, Grate admitted that despite Liz previously mentioning suicidal thoughts, that she fought for her life the moment his hands reached for her throat. He told Major it happened so fast, but the details he provided next suggested a much more deliberate, lingering violence.
In one of the most chilling moments of the entire 8 days of interrogation, Grate offered to show them exactly how he did it. Detective Evans stood in as a surrogate for the victims. Grate reached out and placed his arms around Evans' neck, demonstrating the grip he had ended at least 2 lives in that house. As Shawn is doing this, he recounts what had happened that warm August night. Quote, she started flipping out. Then she fell down. After she stopped breathing, I held on. I held on until she pissed her pants, end quote.
Ugh. This guy. He admitted that when it was over, Liz was left with her shirt off, claiming it had simply come off during the struggle. He flatly denied having sex with her, clinging to a story that Major knew was likely inconsistent with the evidence. She would later testify in court, quote, sometimes I felt I could confront the inconsistencies, but sometimes I just had to let him go with his story, end quote.
She let him talk because she knew there was one more body in that house that he hadn't accounted for. She let him talk because every story he told was another nail in the coffin in his defense.
So after the murder, Grate stuffed Elizabeth into a closet. He warned Major with a casual stomach-turning honesty. It's probably going to stink when they open that door.
But Grate wasn't finished with Liz. A week after she was deceased, he used her key to sneak back into her apartment. He wasn't looking for money. He was cleaning up his trail. He found one of her previous Yahtzee score sheets and tore it up because it had his name on it. While he was there, he treated her home like a grocery store, stealing paper towels, shampoo, and conditioner.
Now, at one of the later interrogations after the autopsy of Liz Griffith, things took a grotesque turn as Detective Major confronted Grate with the forensic reality of the crime scene. While Grate tried to frame Liz's death as a sudden, almost accidental choking somehow, the physical evidence in the house told a far more predatory story.
Major confronted Grate with a specific, disturbing discovery: a homemade sexual device, a stick wrapped in a towel covered with multiple condoms. The evidence suggested a level of post-mortem violation that Grate desperately tried to minimize. He claimed he used the device on Liz's mouth simply to open her up a little bit because her body had gone stiff real fast. Ugh.
I was just using the tools, watching the VHS tapes. The condoms were mainly for me. It'll only have my DNA on them. Grate finally admitted that using the rigged stick was his thing. And he sat there describing his process of watching old tapes and using handmade tools, homemade tools, while the woman he had just killed lay in the next room. He insisted he didn't violate her after she passed, yet he couldn't explain why he felt the need to force her mouth open with a condom-wrapped device.
Major then asked Shawn a question that I think many of us have wondered. Why didn't you leave after she passed? Why stay in that house?
I don't know. I could sense her through the walls. So he lived in the house for weeks with her body rotting just feet away, claiming he could feel her presence through the plaster. He wasn't haunted by guilt. He stayed in the house, eventually bringing Jane Doe into the same space where Liz's scent, for lack of a better word, still lingered, playing out a new fantasy while the old ones decomposed in different levels of that yellow house. I think whatever happened between to Liz was way darker than anything he ever did. But we'll talk about that later in my final thoughts.
Detective Major had already pulled the confession of Liz Griffith out of the shadows of the upstairs closet, but her instincts told her the house on Covert Court hadn't given up all its secrets. After hours of peeling back the layers of Grate's mind, Major leaned in. She didn't ask if there were more. She asked where they were.
And the answer didn't come with any kind of struggle. Shawn casually told her that there was another woman, Stacy Stanley, and that she was in the basement under a pile of trash. While Liz was hidden above them, Stacy was beneath them. Grate had turned the entire house into a vertical tomb. How did he lure Stacy, a 52-year-old mother and grandmother, to such a place?
Grate recounted meeting her at the local BP. Stacy was in a moment of vulnerability. She had a flat tire and was waiting for someone to come help. Grate, playing the role of the helpful, friendly local, struck up a conversation. They talked while he asked her if she wanted to hang out sometime, and she said sure.
To anyone watching from the outside, it looked like a chance meeting between strangers. But to Stacy Stanley, that flat tire at the BP, was the beginning of a trap set by a man who saw her not as a person in need of help, but as an opportunity to feed the hunger he had described to Major just hours before.
Fuck him and his hunger. Fuck him. Fuck Shawn Grate.
I know. What a fuck
No,
wagon.
not fuck Shawn Grate, but fuck Shawn Grate. As the minutes ticked by in the investigation room, the timeline of Stacy Stanley's final moments began to take shape. According to Grate, the evening started with a semblance of normalcy. They were sitting side by side, kissing, but when Stacy tried to set a boundary by refusing to take things further, the atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Grate stood up, telling Detective Major it soured fast, and then he simply snapped.
He claims Stacy felt threatened and reached for the mace she carried for protection. In his first version of the story, he was by the door, but in the second, he was much closer. Stacy fought with everything she had. She backhanded him and sprayed the mace, but she missed the first time. The second time, though, she did hit her mark.
Shawn said that he couldn't see and kept his eyes closed, so he grabbed some white cloth to help strangle her and just kept twisting it. He used his blindness to explain away the brutal marks the coroner would later find. Though that while white cloth he described was never recovered, he admitted that he didn't stop squeezing until he was absolutely certain she was dead.
So Major pressed him on the timing. Stacy had arrived at the house at around 10 p.m., and by 11:30 p.m., she was gone. In just 90 minutes, a grandmother who just needed help changing her flat tire had been silenced. Major asked Grate at what point he decided he was going to kill Stacy. Did he think, I want to do that again?
Quote, "It wasn't really planned. She just gave me flashbacks." End quote.
Her fault, everybody.
Flashbacks.
Her fault.
In Grate's mind, Stacy Stanley wasn't a person. She was a trigger for his own internal darkness. When Major asked if he felt energized by the act, his answer was another chilling part of his confession. He didn't feel a rush or a high. He said he felt numb.
Cool story, bro. Now, as the interrogation of Shawn Grate continued, his story regarding Stacy Stanley began to mirror the onion peeling pattern Detective Major had identified earlier. While he initially attempted to frame his encounter with Stacy as a brief consensual moment of kissing and stuff, the layers were now falling away to reveal a much more violent and predatory reality.
Major, leaning on her decades of experience with sexual offenders, began to push into the specifics of Stacy's clothing. She asked what she was wearing and what had been removed, and the kissing story vanished. Grate admitted that he hadn't just kissed her. He had taken her to his room and forced her to perform oral sex.
Now, when Major asked him if he had sex with her before or after she died, Shawn confirmed it was before. He described a terrifying sequence of events. They had sex, and then a mere 15 minutes later, he grabbed her up and choked her. The transition from a forced sexual act to murder was almost instantaneous. I think he's a liar.
Yeah. This is where the timeline becomes truly incomprehensible for the average person. Major realized that the house on Covert Court was a revolving door of victims. She said to him, You've had Jane Doe since Sunday. When did this happen with Stacy?" Shawn told her, "Probably Thursday."
Wow.
Just another day of the week.
Just another, It's fine. It's no big deal. Think about that timeline. On Thursday night, Grate murdered Stacy and hid her body in the basement. And on Sunday, 3 days later, he brought Jane Doe into the same house. He was playing house and thinking about marriage on the first floor, while Liz Griffith lay in a closet upstairs and Stacy Stanley lay under trash in the basement. Disgusting.
Grate didn't even know Stacy's last name. To him, she was a set of keys, a description of pink pants, and a flashback that ended with his bare hands. He didn't see his victims as people with lives and families. He saw them as opportunities to satisfy a reoccurring urge.
Major pressed him on his motivations. She asked if it was a rage, but Grate's answer was far more chilling. He described it as a hunger that would start brewing deep inside him. He admitted that once the urge took hold, he would actively seek someone out, and he called himself an opportunist, which he most certainly was.
Major challenged this by bringing up Stacy and reminding him that she wasn't looking for a connection. She was a woman with a flat tire trying to get home to her family. Major asked what flipped the switch that led to her death.
So Grate's justification for Stacy's murder was as delusional as it was petty. He claimed he decided that she was a straight up liar. Can you believe that? This mofo fuckwagon is accusing her of being a liar. It's her fault she's dead. He had watched from the shadows of the BP as a man arrived to help Stacy change her tire. Later, when they were at the house, Stacy made a joke about having sugar daddies. And when Grate confronted her about the man who came to the BP, Stacy referred to the man as just a friend, because that's exactly what he was. Exactly. It was her son's friend doing a favor for her son, not her. But Grate decided that she was lying to him. Oh, wow. Okay, sir. Okay.
In Grate's warped reality, a perceived lie was a capital offense. He used her defensiveness and the fact that she maced him as a desperate act of self-defense to justify his guilt. But during Grate's trial, Detective Major was asked to clarify a specific haunting phrase Grate had used. Before he got into the house, it was broken. Major interpreted that to mean that Stacy's fate was already sealed. That Grate already knew what was going to happen before he even walked into the house with her.
It was the ultimate admission of premeditation. The conversation at the BP, the invitation to the house, it was all a performance. And by the time Stacy Stanley's feet crossed the threshold of that house on Covert Court, Shawn Grate had already decided she was never walking out. Because she wasn't killed because she lied. She was killed because she existed in the path of a man who had already decided to satisfy his hunger. Now, next time on part 3 of Captured, the chilling 911 call that brought down Shawn Grate, we're going to hear about the additional 3 victims of Shawn Grate. That's right. It's not just the women in Covert Court. There are more. And we're going to talk about the interview that continues from here, as well as the trial, the sentencing, and the aftermath of the crime. So join us next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern for the final part 3 of the Shawn Grate's story. So before we go, do you have any closing thoughts, Ames?
I hate him. I hate him so much.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to these interviews, and I don't really have any closing thoughts other than I don't like him. He's where he deserves to be right now.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I probably would say he should have gotten that lethal injection he was asking for.
Right. Well, I have some closing thoughts, and I respectfully don't want to speculate too much because I think, especially with Elizabeth, a lot of people would rather believe that what happened is what happened. But I think because Liz was special needs and had mental health issues, I think the story is a lot darker and deeper than what Shawn said. And that somewhere he was ashamed of what he did to Liz, knowing that she was a very vulnerable part of society. Because the story doesn't make any sense.
No.
At all. What do you mean you just randomly decide? No, you didn't. You're a liar. You're a liar about what happened to Liz. And I do think it's darker. I don't want to speculate into what I think probably went down out of respect for those that love her. Let's not do that. But I think he's lying about every single aspect when it comes to Liz, because he knew her for a while. He hung out with her and talked to her more than he did Jane Doe. So it's not like it was some random thing like with Stacey Stanley, who I want to talk about next. Stacey was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I do think there was some truth to his statement with Major regarding Jane Doe, that I wanted her for one more day, then I was going to burn the house down and then turn myself in. I don't think the turn himself in part was there. Part of me wonders if the reason that Stacey happened is because he wanted a vehicle. He wanted to murder her, yes, and do whatever the fuck it is he did to her, because I'm sure it was more than what he said, because it's always more than what Shawn says. But I think he wanted her car. So that way, when he was done doing all the fuckery he decided to do, he had an escape route. And I say that knowing that area, this is not it's not a big city. All right. Mm-mm. It's a big town, but there's you need a car to go literally anywhere in Ohio. Otherwise, he was never leaving Ashland. There's no, anything taken. You needed a vehicle and he didn't have anybody. So why not kill a woman, get your jollies, and then steal her car? Now, he did park it far away from the house, but, he's probably like, well, if nobody notices it in a while, then, because why would he think that he knew that Stacey's family was looking for her. But when he first met her, Liz was missing for about 4 to 5 weeks before
August 16th,
her name came out.
August 16th was the last time she was seen.
Yeah. So
September 11th was.
Yeah. And what we know, and I'm not going to do spoilers for the next episode when we learn about his other victims, but he got away with it. Why would he not think the same would be for Stacey Stanley? What he didn't know was that he met his match with her and her family and her boys. But nonetheless, I think that was more of his motivation. And he was like, oh, here's the opportunity to get that car I need to get the fuck out of here.
That's a good point about the car, but I just am very curious why it all escalated so quickly. If you consider the other victims and the timing.
Well,
they weren't so quick. And he got away from the areas. I don't know. I think he was building confidence in his getting away with it.
Well, absolutely. Sure. But in between the other times, he had periods of stability. They weren't for the women he was with, all right, but he wasn't homeless running around.
I think he was really hoping that things with Jane Doe was going to pan out. I mean,
yeah,
I could tell that it wasn't. I mean, she was not going to be, I mean, it was clear she did not want a relationship with him.
No, but I mean, I absolutely believe him when he said he was going to burn down the house.
He thought, I don't know. I still believe, part of me, and I've said this to you in talking about this case, that I think Elizabeth was a block to Jane. In some ways. Jane knew her, and they lived in the same building complex. And, you know, if Elizabeth is getting, you know, feelings for Shawn, but Shawn is having feelings for Jane, he could see Elizabeth as causing problems with that relationship with Jane.
Because she's a talker. Because of course, and I mean that in the best way.
You know, she shows up when they're together. You know,
she's very childlike.
He wanted her out of the way.
You know, that's what everybody said about her. She was very childlike with a big heart. You know, she didn't know no better to be loud and boisterous about things going around, and he probably didn't want people like to notice him. And she did. And remember, she said to Cindy was under the impression that she had met a guy that she liked, and she wanted Cindy to meet. So I think, yes, he was like, oh, you know. So 77 said, you guys know what kind of car he drove? He didn't have a car. He was homeless, living in an abandoned house.
He didn't have a job. He didn't have anything.
Right. But Stacy Stanley drove a Mitsubishi, if I remember right, was the keys that they found that belonged to her. So that's why I think part of his motive for Stacy was, oh, look at this. Boom. Here we go. But remember, he met her before Jane Doe. So I wonder too, like, did he like be like, okay, I got this getaway vehicle that I'm keeping a few blocks away, because that is the smart thing to do.
Before Jane Doe?
Stanley. Stacy's on Thursday, and then Jane is on Sunday. Well, if he wants the car to leave.
He knew Jane Doe. He had known Jane Doe.
Well, he takes Jane Doe after he kills Stacy.
Yeah.
Anyway, right? So he has the car, but he doesn't want to leave without, you know, his love for Jane Doe or something. I don't know. But what I do know is that we barely know what happened to those women. And I'm sure for their loved ones and their family, it's probably better that way, to not know what he did. Because don't act like he was fucking kind to them, doing a service. Like, when you strangle somebody, that is a very specific way to kill somebody. It says a lot about your psychology. You know, it's not like it was a fucking accident. You spent 5 minutes trying to kill another human being who did literally nothing to you. Pam says, I always thought Liz was opportunity. I mean, I think that's a good point.
I think Liz was an obstacle. In any way.
Pam says, Llama, with Stacy, what are your thoughts about the little rose faces in the truck that tied her to the house? We talked about, Amos and I talked about this because we were a little confused about what that meant. And then Amos found the pictures, and it was a lot of them. And I know what they can be used for, but based on everything that Stacy had went through to be where she was today, you wouldn't need that many of those. Okay. We like to think that it was for a craft project or something at the time, because she was, you know, buying stuff for her garden. Maybe she was doing them, selling them as a fundraiser. I don't think they were for nefarious purposes.
I don't
either. Just
at
because
all.
of the amount she had of, with the flowers still in them, is all I'm saying. And like, I mean, it was thousands. I do know the alternative use for those sometimes, but these are not the ones you're thinking of either, because we had the picture where these were more like chemistry tubes as opposed to pipe like. I mean, you could use just about anything, but I don't think at this point that's what was going on with Stacy. And quite frankly, I know that it is brought up. The only reason we bring up her past of being an addict is not to demean her. It's actually to, it's so sad because it's so hard to overcome that battle of addiction for people of all sorts of addiction. She overcame it, and then this happened to her. And so the only reason why I chose to like really bring it up is because of that, because he took something that she had worked so hard for, according to her sons, and threw her away like trash, even though she was a better person than him. Despite, who gives a fuck if she was addicted to drugs? You know what she didn't do? Go around killing fucking people. You know, I'm not arguing with Pam. I know you feel the same, but you know, we had wondered about that too. But honestly, the amount, it didn't really make sense. So you got the impression they came from Shawn Grate, not Stacy, because this was scattered in the house. Oh, like he put them in her car as if he was trying to bail. Maybe. Because it was a ridiculous amount of, but I feel
they were in her trunk in a bag, all in the boxes, and in the house they were taken out of the boxes and in a basket.
I'll be honest, Pam's theory makes more sense to me, because listen, yes, they can be used for drugs purposes. Usually that's how convenience stores sell them. Crack pipes, as some people know them, or meth pipes. This was like a more like a chemistry tube kind from we looked, but it would make more sense that Shawn either had them at the house, because we do know, we haven't talked about it yet.
Why would he put them in the trunk of her car?
To sell. Like, you can sell them for a couple bucks to addicts. He knows that lifestyle. All right. So instead of going to the corner store to buy your, because listen, you got to buy, like, you can't just keep the same one. You have to constantly keep buying them. And so
they're so small.
Yeah. Well, for reasons I'm not going to go into.
I mean, I get all of that, but I mean, it's a.
Oh, you think like he gave her some as a way to get in the house? Maybe, but I don't know. The love roses, they do cause me confusion in this story, because that's what I was like, what is this what I think it is? And then I Googled it, and they were like, yeah. But then Amos showed me the picture and how many they were, and I was like, okay, so this doesn't make any sense why they're here. So we don't know. We don't know if they did belong to Stacy or if they belong to Shawn, now that I think about it. Because listen, if you're a recovering addict, you're not going to want fucking possible paraphernalia around. And that's where my questions came from. Like, why would you have a whole trunk full of these? Though then, you know, sweet little Amos over here was like, oh, for arts and crafts. Because she's adorable like that. And I was like, you know what? I like your theory better than mine. But could be. Let us know in the comments what you guys think about these little roses. Again, I do not believe that she was having them for nefarious reasons. There's nothing found in her house or her car or her autopsy to suggest otherwise, that she had relapsed or anything. And I do not want to tarnish her hard work and legacy to speculate that maybe she didn't. It's facts. Autopsy, toxicology, all of that. None of that happened. But it's certainly interesting. Now you got me
so
thinking.
Here's, I can share with you guys. Lig was talking about
And he carried them out for her. Ooh.
So
because, oh, you know what, Pam? Sorry. That's a really interesting idea, Pam, because that's how he lured Jane Doe over. He said to her, my mom gave me some extra clothes, as if like they were going to be for like a donation or something. And that's how he got Jane to go over, because she wouldn't have gone over that's not who Jane was. So
interesting.
Could be. Good thoughts. Pam was our researcher for this, so she did a really good job with it.
Here's.
Oh, Lady in Gray wants to see.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are with the comment about Jane Doe. Yeah, that's excellent.
So yeah. That was the bag in her trunk.
I always wondered if he was the guy that pulled up to me at a gas station off 71. Looks just like him. Could be. I mean, he frequented Marion, Mansfield, Ashland. I mean, obviously, so you're from Ohio, I can tell. So yeah, you know, that's right in the way. It could be. But what do they look like out of the boxes? So it's
I'm getting there.
But now, so the abandoned house that he was in did already have stuff in it. And the house was owned by like a ministry group kind of place that would allow like homeless people to live there or something. That's what we learned about the house. So they could have been stuff, you know, that was already left at the house. Excuse me. It's very weird. I don't know what you would use them for, but.
So.
Oh, it was Marion. See? Oh, wow. Could be. Could be.
And here is the picture.
Could. Yeah, they were inside. You've been waiting to ask us about them. You literally have a chat with us, but okay. No, we did have a long discussion about these love roses.
Yeah, and old innocent Amy here is old lady Amy.
She's like, what?
I'm like, what?
I think the idea that they could be Shawn's makes a whole lot of sense. But then why would... Okay, so there's what they look like out of the box. So he had that. That's in the house. That basket was.
Yeah, there are a variety of colors and
so who knows? The love roses do perplex me, but I don't think if it was Stacy's, I don't think they were for nefarious purposes, which also makes me wonder why she would accept them, knowing what they could be used for. Though I don't know the details of her addiction, so I don't want to speculate there. But then it makes sense that they're Shawn's, because the house was abandoned with a bunch of shit left over, and he could also sell them to, you know, addicts. He did run in those circles for many of years to get some cash, you know. So did we mention these in the story? They were briefly mentioned in the first episode of being in her car, what was in her car. But we did not go into detail because I didn't want to speculate too much about them.
We literally don't have any details on the love roses other than the two pictures that are part of the evidence.
Right. Yeah. It was. So you're sticking with the ruse to get in my house. It makes sense. I mean, it's a good theory. Pam also says what was found in the house and the car to link her to Shawn Grate. That is correct. That is what we talked about in episode 1. So again, though, my final thoughts for this episode is that I think a lot of what Shawn left out a lot of the stories of what really went down there. And I think it's way worse than what he tried to deflect from, especially with Liz. And I mean, none of us want to think about those bad things, but I don't believe he said the truth about anything. Look at what he said about Jane Doe that we knew was unequivocally not true, and his delusions for that. So what do you think they would be for a handicapped woman or a stranger? Like way worse, So those are my thoughts about this section. Next week, once you hear the other murders he's done, you'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, he probably did mean he was going to burn the house down with all the bodies in there. Oh yeah, he is a fuckwagon. Yeah. Yes, that's true. All right. Sorry. Let's wrap her up because I went way overboard tonight. Oh, what'd you ask there, Spetty? Sorry, hold on. Is there proof she actually purchased those? Not that we know of or anything like that. Again, we know that they were boxed. So the pictures of the ones in the box are in the trunk of her car. Okay. Could have been put there by her. Could have been put there by Shawn. He had access to her car because he's the one who moved her car.
If they were his and he was setting it up to take away.
Or they could be Shawn's. We don't know. We don't know who they belong to. But they're there. So yeah, no, you guys are totally fine. All right, let's do some quick promos and then we're out of here.
All right. Before we go, if you like what you've heard tonight, be sure to follow us on all our socials and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free, and if you're listening to our podcast, please download and give us a rating. All of that helps tremendously in getting our channel out there.
That is true. That is true. Now, next week, as I said, on True Crime and Wine Time, we'll be covering part 3 of Captured, the call that brought down Shawn Grate on Thursday at 8 p.m. Again, we're going to talk about the additional victims. We're going to hear a lot of the victim impact statements. So probably bring some Kleenexes as well. Also, I'll be on Couch Core with Llama tomorrow at 11 a.m., where the lovely Buffy and I are diving deeper into the Laura Owens shenanigans. If you are listening and you don't know what that is, find our YouTube channel for the craziest case I've ever seen in my whole life. It's insane. It is wild. It only continues to get worse and worse with every episode in ways you can't imagine. But is there anything you would like to say, Amos, before we go or sign off?
No. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be hosting this with you. I mean, sad story, but I'm happy to be doing it with you.
Well, I'm glad you are too. Everybody let her know that she did a really good job. It's been like years of me pestering her to be like, come, be on camera with me. Even in Discord. I did it. Victorious.
You did it. You finally did it. You can mark that off your bucket list.
Did it. I did it. Well, thank you all for being with us tonight. I will see you all next week. We will see you all next week. Maybe Terry will drop by. I don't know how she's feeling. We'll see. But until next time, everyone, stay safe and go forth and be amazing. All right? Bye, guys.
Bye.
Yay.